Stop labeling black crime as black culture.
What if I told you that those race hustlers on both the left and the right are equally disgusting? And here's why. In this video, we'll jump in and we're going to break down the conservative right race hustlers, many of them who are black, who are podcasters, who have large audiences, continue to feed the narrative that violent, degenerate behavior is black culture. No, that is a culture that's carried out by some people who happen to be black. And you have vile, degenerate behavior that is carried out by white people, but you don't name that as white culture. Allow us to explore some of the recent activity of those vile and degenerate behaviors coming from white people. And no, in no way or form am I trying to minimize the disgusting behavior that many within the black community have engaged and actually celebrate. But I like to keep things balanced, and this is where those who are race hustlers on both the left and the right, they have no balance. It's all on one side or it's nothing. But it is not all on one side. We have a violent America, and America is violent at its core. It was founded in violence. And even with that being the case, I still am America first. If we ever get a representative in the White House that is truly America first. We thought it would be Donald Trump, but he has shown that he is compromised. Allow me to bring up the receipts and allow you to decide for yourself who is valid. I say both white and black Americans and many more in the other ethnic groups are valid because America is valid. Allow us to pull up this guy, Travis Decker. He killed his 3 daughters, allegedly smothered them, his 3 young daughters. And this is within the last month. Allow us to slide over. This is Michael Paul Brown. He killed 4 people in a bar, I think in Montana. Again, in the last week or 2. This is America violence. This guy, Andrew McGain, killed 2 people randomly. And they're looking to see if he has killed more. And he happened to be a school teacher. He catches people out on the trail at what is called Devil's Den in Arkansas, and he slaughtered the 2 parents. The 2 daughters, young daughters, were able to get away. This individual right here, and he was a school teacher. But look at him, he looks very disturbed. Allow us to go into this guy, Austin Robert Drummond. He killed 4 people, and then he took the little baby and left the baby on the lawn. All this is within the last 3 to 4 weeks. And you tell me that blacks are the only ones that are violent. No, America has a violent problem across the board. And now let's dive into some of these conservative race hustlers on the right. They're soft race hustlers. They like to present themselves as just putting forth the truth. And some of it is true. But I rarely find them ever doing deep dives into the criminality of many of those who happen to be white. And as I brought up many times before, in actual numbers, more Americans are impacted by violent crime across the board by white people. Yes, they make up a larger portion of the country. This is true. but we're dealing with raw numbers, and even in percentage numbers when it comes to sexual assault, when it comes to, I believe, aggravated assault, and those things of that nature. In the FBI statistics, the average or the percentage of those committing those crimes are more or even equal to that which is correlated to black. So we strip out the raw numbers and we look at the percentages. And you'll see raw number wise, those sexual assaults, those aggravated assaults, those burglaries and things of that nature, those numbers are astronomically in favor of white people committing those crimes versus black people. And this still doesn't assume black people or excuse black people for that type of behavior. But you don't name white violence as white culture. You don't name trailer park violence or trailer park living or trailer park behavior by many of those who live in trailer parks who are white, who are as a lower class of whites when it comes to classism. You don't take their behavior and you don't slide it as being white culture. So we must move on beyond that. Allow us to look at some of these individuals who are conservative race hustlers, the Hodge twins. They've built a mighty platform of always pointing out black degeneracy, talking about black culture, black fatigue. No, that is a people or certain people within the black community that engage in this type of degenerate behavior. That is not black culture. That is the culture of individuals who choose to behave in that way. It doesn't encompass blacks as a whole. There are many blacks that are not engaged in this foolishness. So we got to stop allowing them to label this as black culture. It is egregious, degenerate, vile, vulgar culture being carried out by black people. But black people are the only one carrying out this type of vile and degenerate behavior. It may be loud and more readily available or shown on the media, but whites and others are engaged in very vile and extremely vulgar and degenerate behavior. But these individuals have made a killing on YouTube exposing only black degeneracy. Every now and then they may explode a little bit of white, but it's all about black degeneracy, and they want to label it as black culture. It is not black culture. It is culture carried out by individuals who happen to be black, who are engaged in degenerative, vile, vulgar, and low-level behavior, low-capacity behaviors. That doesn't represent black people. It represents a certain segment of individuals who happen to be black. Let's get that clear. Now let's move on. Valuetainment. These individuals, I watch them as well. I get a lot of good information from them, but on the same thing, they too are conservative race hustler, and they have a soft racist tone or undertone to some of their reporting. They would even go as far as to legitimize the racist Nick Fuentes. But anytime you hear them talk about black people who complain about X, Y, and Z and do race hustling on their own, they always point out those individuals as being race hustlers. But when Nick Fuentes, who has accomplished nothing when it comes to a legitimate business besides revving up people with racial hate and misidentifying, misrepresenting facts when it comes to why blacks haven't collectively been or grown in a way that would represent a highly sophisticated class of people, he too is at the bottom of the hierarchy when it comes to classism in white society. Only way that he's become knowing or recognizable is because of his race hate. And those individuals who are lower in the lower class of white people who engage that and use that as a dog whistle. But they're doing the same thing. They're race hustling. They're blaming black people for their lack of success when it comes to the white people, those who have not really and truly succeeded as white people in America have to find a way to blame somebody else. And this is race hustling from their end. But these individuals will give them a platform, will not call it out. But anytime you hear a black race hustler get on or say something, they immediately call that out and they immediately try to label any vile behavior as being black culture. I haven't seen them cover not one of the things that I just pointed out with those other individuals. They too are race hustlers, soft racists in the sense that they love to point out certain things and deny other things. And you'll hear these conservatives talk about DEI and the negative effect it had on it, but they would never recognize anything that this government did, particularly and directly, to oppose black progress. And we're not just talking about slavery. We're not just talking about Jim Crow. We're talking about the 1960s as well. We're talking about the 1980s when they allowed drugs into the inner city via the CIA to sponsor the Contras in Nicaragua in that war. And this is something that is readily available. I advise you to read the book Dark Alliance by Gary Webb. He eventually suspiciously offed himself, as most people who call out this government seem to do. So it's very suspicious. Allow us to move on. I want to shorten this video in just a second. Let's deal with Officer Tatum. Again, another brilliant individual, but he's a race hustler to the highest degree when it comes to blacks. And he continues to always point out what blacks are doing, always dog whistling and rehashing the talking points of racist conservatives. He too, I don't see him really pointing out anything going on with white people, but he tries to defend it as if all black people behave in the way that these individuals who are getting media airplay behave. He too is a race hustler. He has a brilliant and big audience. He is brilliant, but he's a race hustler. He hasn't found one dirty cop that he ever knows. And we know that there are dirty cops and there are dirty politicians. There are dirty doctors. There are dirty lawyers. You have dirty people in all the business. When I say dirty, those who are corrupted. But this individual, he never sees anything but what the black person done. Again, he's a brilliant brother, but he's a race hustler, a conservative race hustler against blacks. It is what it is. Allow us to look at it. This guy, he's truly a conservative race hustler. Again, they want to put all the crimes at the feet of black people, but if you go in and look at the FBI stats, that is not the case. Crime is being committed on a high level by white people as well. And this must be exposed. All crime is egregious, no matter who's committed. And I'm not justifying these black people and their crime. I don't want to go anywhere around that culture. And that culture is devastating and degenerate. But you have a white culture, if you want to name violence that's being committed by a specific group. You have whites committing a ton of violence, and you're not labeling that as white culture. But it is white culture if you label all the violent, degenerate stuff that black people do as black culture as a whole. You can't do that. You're being a race hustler. And now we'll look at Anton Daniels. I respect this guy. He has a lot going on, and I appreciate what he does. But again, he's a race hustler as well. He gives ear to these individuals that always talk about black fatigue, that's always talking about what blacks are not doing. Yes, this is true, but you have to look at the whole picture. You have a ton of white people that are doing as vile and even more vile stuff than black people, but you don't label it as white culture, because you shouldn't label it as white culture, because it is a certain segment of white people doing certain things, as is a certain segment of black people are doing certain things. So again, we must grow beyond this race hustling tactics on both the left and the right. We'll do a video about the left race hustlers, and I'll expose them as well. What we need to know as individuals, as a group of people, as a group of higher thinkers, we need to look at the whole scope of thing and understand that America has a violence problem, and it's not just because of blacks. It is a violence problem that is innate and inherent in the very foundation of American society. The very foundation of America was built on violence, and we must come to understand that. So, again, if you like the videos, please like, subscribe, and comment. Have a beautiful day. Sending you peace and always love. Peace.